As a little girl growing up in India, where gender-specific roles and expectations prevailed, I had the unique opportunity of growing up with my grandfather. He was a self-made man, progressive for his times, and loved engaging in many rich, thought-provoking, and fascinating conversations. One very defining moment for me happened when I was 11, when he asked me what my religion was. And I remember thinking, all right, he's my grandfather the last time I checked, so I said, I'm a Hindu, just like you. And he asked me why. Now I thought he was messing with me, and so I played along and I said, because I was born one like the rest of you. And he said, is that what you believe? I mean, is that what you choose? That question sat there with me. And I remember thinking, well, mom's gonna be pissed that we're having this conversation. But then I realized, like, I get to choose. I mean, I had the right to. Now, I said I didn't know at the time. And he said, well, if you're going to choose, I want you to go educate yourself about all the religions that are out there. And I want you to be curious, but decide what actually works for you. That's when I realized I had the power of choice. I mean, I could do anything I imagined if I was willing to lean into the discomfort that comes with the vulnerability of representing yourself. It's when I actually learned the importance and the power of self-advocacy. So what happened to that little girl? Here I am, decades later, and we don't need to speculate how many decades. I thought I had it all. Big dreams, bold ambitions. I even prided myself in being able to do it all. Being a mom, a wife, a daughter, a sister, a daughter-in-law, an employee, and a friend. I mean, it was exhausting just listing it out. But that's what we were doing. It took 6 months into the pandemic, similar to many of you, when my personal and professional life was in overdrive, as we all witnessed people suffering across the planet, as we all watched COVID unfold. And it forced me to actually slow down and pause. And I'm extremely grateful for it because it had me actually appreciate the little things in life. Bedtime with my kids, our health. I also have a huge appreciation for all of the educators out there because I was, exactly, let's give them a round of applause. That's right, for all of our educators. Because I was a horrible homeschool teacher, I'll say that. And my kids will attest to it too. But it also let me clearly see that I was drowning. And I was drowning long before any of this. And it took the pandemic to really shine a light on it. And I remember realizing that something needed to change. I needed to rediscover that little girl, my purpose, and really what I needed. So I started looking around, sharing my experience with others. And through several conversations with thousands of women, I will say, across the globe over the last 2 years, I realized I wasn't alone. Several women were exhausted just juggling everyday life. We had women in jobs for too long because they felt obligated and stuck. Many underpaid, regardless of how impactful their work was, and several that had chosen to put their careers and ambitions on hold because of the expected responsibility that comes with women. And the pattern that emerged through these conversations was the need and the importance of self-advocacy. We were all uncomfortable with it. There was a confusion related to self-advocacy and being selfish. And there was also this anxiety with the fear of the unknown. So did it make me feel good knowing that everyone else struggled with this? Absolutely not. If you guys are paying attention to me, that's not going to be okay. And so I was now even more curious and motivated to learn and understand why it was that those that seemed to be confident, successful, and had it all still struggled to ask for what they want. So I started reviewing information from several sources, and one particularly interesting one was from MIT in partnership with the National Institute of Health. And this is what it said. Women are expected to be more modest than men, and not self-advocate due to gender stereotypes. women who do self-advocate, get this, are less likely to be liked by either gender because the self-advocacy will be seen as excessive. And finally, women are amazing at advocating for everyone else, but are uncomfortable with the vulnerability when they have to do it for themselves. So, any Ted Lasso fans out there? Yeah, there you go. I love this. I know it's a famous quote by Gloria Steinem, but the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. I mean, after all that research, I was like, what am I going to do with this information? It doesn't actually help me. It validates we have a problem. It also validates that it's going to be difficult for us as women. This is when you have a huge appreciation. I love my husband, and having an in-home psychologist is amazing because obviously I need a lot of help. So he introduced me to Pascal's wager. Now, have you heard of Pascal's wager? So Pascal's wager is the philosophic argument by Blaise Pascal, a fascinating man that you should look into, that humans wager with their lives that God either exists or doesn't exist. Now, psychology professor Kelly Wilson adapted Pascal's wager to be used to help with daily choices. So I decided to introduce Bhavanas Wager. Now, when we self-advocate, we actually have a great deal to win with absolutely nothing to lose. We're actually better off because of the clarity. But when we choose not to self-advocate, we have a lot to lose and absolutely nothing to gain. So the big secret, self-advocacy is hard, but it is hard for everyone, especially harder for women. But the biggest thing that I learned with this is that we have absolutely nothing to lose when we self-advocate, and we have so much to gain. So now I was committed to working through it and hoping to help others along the way. So that's what had me decide to introduce my 5 steps to unlock the secrets to self-advocacy. Now, the first one starts with imagine you can. You can't be what you can't see. I love this quote by Marian Wright Edelman. It is so foundational to recognizing your potential and your ability to dream. We've got to be able to see it in ourselves. Remember when you were little, and I know I see some little ones here, so you can remember, but the rest of us, try to go back to when you were young. What did you want to be when your imagination was at the peak? I loved DC and Marvel comics. I want to put that out there. Grateful for all the movies that have come out. And then I was raised to embrace girl power, so naturally I wanted to form my own secret society of female superheroes. Met a lot of them along the way, and so many in this room. But what did you want to be? You remember that fire, that confidence that you felt when you imagined you could do whatever you believed? That's what I'm asking you to reignite. So start by simply imagining what's possible. Next, we really want to get comfortable in honoring and sharing our journey. As humans, we always tend to look around and compare ourselves to others. We focus on our shortcomings. I mean, I already talked about it today. You've all seen my shortcoming. But that reality of embracing your experiences, both the good and the bad, isn't easy. But if I were to be really honest, some of my biggest growth, validation of my strengths, and when I truly realized what I was capable of, happened during my toughest times. It's actually what makes us stronger. And honestly, it's what makes you unique. Now, when we are asked to talk about ourselves, we're uncomfortable, and at least culturally where I'm from, and I know as women, we're concerned that it's going to come across as bragging. Well, great, don't brag. But sharing your authentic story, your truth, is powerful. It's what builds connection. And through those connections lies the power to elevate yourself while elevating others along the way. And my youngest daughter, Ellie, would always say when she was little, "It's amazing to be me." And so we had plenty of Halloweens where she was Ellie just wearing her ballerina outfit, or Ellie just going as Ellie for Halloween. And it was amazing as a parent because we didn't have to shop for her. But I loved that confidence. And so, I want you to find that inner Ellie and really embrace the power of you. Now, next, it's really recognizing our choices. We can learn to appreciate a greater range of choices if we're willing to practice leaning into our fear. As I mentioned earlier, a significant amount of discomfort comes from the fear of the unknown. It's that voice in our head. I call mine Sherlock. I love the British accent. But also, it's because he's super analytical and a big champion of all the what-if scenarios. And I know there are those voices that are worried and concerned. But the reality is that voice starts dominating your thinking. And we quickly lose the ability to really recognize the choices that we have right in front of us. And so while we're highly unlikely to get rid of those Sherlocks in our head, the voice only has the power you give it. So if instead of investing your time and energy into avoiding your fear, if we engage in the preparation and the research that comes with what's important to you, and more importantly, what it is you actually fear and work through it, you will be surprised on the creativity that you will have around the choices you can manage. So I'm going to talk about my next daughter, Maddie, right now for a second. So Maddie, when I just tell her, hey, tonight we're going to have pizza, do you want to go out? Or do you want to, should we order takeout? Her first answer is always no. Now remember, no is actually an option that we always don't put on the table. And then she'll go on to saying, I'd like Chick-fil-A. Right next door is an ice cream place that's amazing, Mom. And then she'll say, there's this movie we all wanted to watch, and so let's go there too. And I was like, wait a minute. And now next thing I know, she's in freaking control, right? So when you actually know your choices, you are actually empowered and in control. Don't give that power to somebody else. Now, next, it's time to ask. There's this famous quote that's attributed to John Wayne. Courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway. Courage is literally not possible without fear. And everything I've talked about so far is around being prepared to help you embrace that fear. And you're going to realize when you know your strengths, you know what you want, you've worked through your fear, and you are prepared, this part, asking, is actually your easiest part. And so when you ask, I just want to remember 3 things. 1, be clear. Spell it out. It's like when I tell my son, please go clean your room. And I go up 4 hours later and nothing's done. And when I start fussing at him, his comment is, if you wanted me to do that, you should have just said that. I can't read your mind. Now at that time, I'm always like, I do want you to try to read my mind right now. It's saying a lot of stuff. But the reality is he's right. We don't live in a world of mind readers. So we've got to be clear on exactly what we want. Second, be bold. Don't minimize your ask. Because the reality is what's important to you is important, and it isn't someone else's problem. So be bold and seize the opportunity. And finally, and I know women tend to do this, don't over-explain your ask. Get comfortable with the silence that comes after for a second, and then just leave room and space for them to process and respond. We've gotten this far, this is amazing. Finally, the last step, find your people, don't go at it alone. We all need our people, and as women, we especially do. I'd ask you to focus on, having those people, whether it's your friends or close family, it needs to be people that uplift you, that let you be the best version of yourself and are there for you, both the good and the bad. Now, I also want to make sure I kind of provide context on, it is also important for us to leverage our allies, our mentors, our sponsors, our coaches, our board of directors, whatever we want to call them, because you are worth it and you are worthy of their time. A lot of times we have these people, but we're really worried about using them out of lack of concern that you're not worthy of their time. You are. So please make sure you leverage those folks. And now that I've talked about this and you all know the secrets to self-advocacy now, I'm confident that every single one of you can now do this. But I want to talk about why it is important. Through the pandemic, as the world was in crisis and came to a halt, women across the globe stepped up and helped the world adjust to life through the pandemic. But here we are, it's 2022, and women are still the most underrepresented, underpaid, and undervalued demographic. In business alone, there are 48% entry-level workers entering the workforce that are women, but there are only 4.6, 23 female CEOs in the Fortune Global 500. Now, this was actually progress. I just want to be really clear, right? But the pandemic has actually set us back disproportionately. In 2020 alone, in the first year of the pandemic, women attributed to the loss of 64 million jobs. And according to the World Economic Forum, the gender gap grew from 99.5 to 135.6 years. Now, none of this actually makes sense, especially considering closing the gender gap will actually add a staggering $28 trillion to the global GDP. $28 trillion. So it isn't due to lack of talent or capability of women. It's the way our system works. Women are in crisis, and it is our time to act now. I want to make sure like everybody recognizes while we've made progress, the world is changing at a pace faster than we can keep up with it. Now, who better to deal with change than women? I mean, we've proven that time and time again. We are super grateful for all of our female trailblazers, both past and present, that have inspired and fought for progress that we experience today. We're at a time in our lives where we can no longer wait for all of those women to go at it alone. We've proven that as women, we can change the world, and we are unstoppable when we work together. We are at a pivotal moment in history to seize that momentum, to disrupt inequities and fuel systemic change, and create a shift in mindset. A shift in mindset that has the power to spark a movement that this world has never seen. And that movement starts with us. It actually starts with women everywhere taking that first step to just ask for what they want. Simply imagine what would happen if we all did. Thank you.